Season 2 of
boy. We back. We back.
We are back. We took a longer break than expected, but that's okay because we were getting better every day.
Right. Right. But you know what? They don't know that necessarily, right? Like maybe we were just sitting on this episode, y'all. Maybe we want y'all to think that we took a longer break than expected. All right. You know, but there's no telling.
Could be the biggest research that we put into anything. I don't know. But yeah, busy summer. This is probably going to release somewhere in the fall. And then we're going to do I feel more organized this time around. I feel like we've got a little bit more going. We've got a calendar that's working and a game plan going through with some of these episodes, a little bit more pre-planning on the topics. So I'm excited. We also have technology much better.
I would hope so. Right. I would hope after full season, a long season at that we finally work some kinks out, tweak a couple things, make a few adjustments. Where's Peyton Manning? Oh, look, call a couple Omahas. All right, just get it going. So I think we're in a good space. Good space, man. I think we're in a good space. I'm ready to rock season 2. I think we got some really good guests lined up thus far with a couple kind of right on the bubble of getting some commitment and getting some dates firmed up. So I think season 2 is going to be a banger.
Yeah, completely agree. Couldn't agree more. And we're going to go a little bit shorter on the season for anybody who's interested. Not going to be a full 20 episodes, but it'll be shorter breaks in between seasons. So it's kind of a win-win, I guess, unless you really like long seasons.
If you listen to all 20 episodes of last season and you like long seasons, hey, snaps to you. We appreciate that. All right. We really appreciate that. That's some dog work, but we appreciate y'all listening in and hopefully y'all commented, liked, shared, and found some value in what it is we were talking about and found ways to apply it to your life and maybe help other people apply it to theirs. So no, seriously, from the bottom of our hearts, we really appreciate that and appreciate y'all coming back for season 2.
Yeah, the support has been really, really nice. And we are going to do a concerted effort towards more of that application. That's something we were just talking about before we hopped on. And so hopefully we'll continue that for you guys. We have a quick update, a couple changes, but Mr. Mike, you are up to new things as of last recording.
Yeah. As of last recording, when was the last recording? I don't remember, honestly.
Would have been the spring. I think you were leaving the last gig.
So that's why I'm trying to remember if I had left or resigned, quit, whatever you want to call it, or if I was on the verge of it. Either way, I am up to some new things, awesome things that are really stoking the flames in my heart. As of February 2024, the end of February, so we'll call it March. I quit my corporate job of 3 years. Was in corporate sales for a while, and I decided to 100% pursue what I feel like I'm called to do: personal training and sports performance, helping people lead healthy lives, just create a space in their life and help them dedicate time to being the best version of themselves, right? That has a lot of components to it, but for me in particular, taking on the physical part of it and helping them get there. So I have started a health and wellness, sports performance, and personal training business. It's called Off the Bench. Y'all can see I'm repping today, right? Got to always be repping right now. And it has been nothing shy of amazing. I did a hard launch on my birthday back in July. And the past couple months, man, I can't tell you how fulfilled I've been, how awesome it is to have the support of family, friends, and people that I don't know. Even it's probably the biggest surprise. So a couple changes over here, and we are dialed in, and we are getting better every single day, learning a lot, reading a lot, and applying a lot, right? Doesn't do me any good to read and learn if I don't apply it. So utilizing that application piece to make it practical and to get it out there so people can benefit from it.
Yeah, which we are ecstatic. I can double down and say that Mike has more energy and is not feeling as drained at the end of the day. He's always excited about what he's working on. And so it's been really nice to hop on the phone with him and catch up over the course of, I guess, last time since we saw you guys. Over here, a little bit more of the same. Got a lot of travel in this summer with work. So saw some new things, some new context, learned how other people did similar things, rethought some of my processes. And so the same thing can't talk right now. Same thing. Iron sharpens iron, and been around a lot of iron. And so I'm excited to take some of that and bring it to you guys this season in particular. Kind of in the realm of grit and what separates elite performers from great performers. So that'll be cool. We'll jump into that at some point, I'm sure. But yeah. And then I don't know if that dinged for you. Did that ding?
I heard a little something. I don't know. It was very, very faint.
Shout out to the echo canceling here at Riverside.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Anyway, today we want to talk to you guys a little bit about, I guess we'll start with the idea of the armchair quarterback. Mike, are you familiar with the armchair quarterback?
I'd be lying if I said yes. I have no clue what the armchair quarterback is. I know you mentioned it to me very briefly, but fill me in, or continue to fill me in, and let's fill in everybody else on what the armchair quarterback is. Yeah, then let's rock from there.
Yeah. So the armchair quarterback is the idea of someone whose confidence is exceeding their competence. And so you are more sure that you will do well and that you know the right things than knowledge you have to be sure of that. And so it's called the armchair quarterback syndrome, because if you are sitting at home watching the game, Mike's got a nice little Bengals hat on, so we'll go with Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Let's say there's a play that you don't like from Joey, and you sit on the couch, I can't believe they would do that. Or it's the end of the game, I can't believe they wouldn't just run the ball. It doesn't make any sense. Like, I should coach.
Right.
That insane level of confidence, you probably don't have the competence from the couch, to go in and coach that game, to play quarterback at the NFL level. Nonetheless, here you are talking about how you could. And so that is, in essence, the armchair quarterback.
There's probably a reason why you are right here with us at this point watching that game. If you had the confidence, like you said, somebody would be knocking down your door trying to get you to be their offensive, defensive coordinator, special teams, whatever your specialty may be. So, okay, I like it. Let's run with it.
Yeah, you could say if you were to mend the mind or even come, see us work with Mike a little bit, you might be able to come off the bench into that position. But right now,
I see what you did there. That was pretty slick. Appreciate the shout out.
And in general, I think the way that this manifests the most in my life and in a lot of people's lives would be that same essence. We're watching the game, we're complaining about something that happened that we don't necessarily know all the ins and outs of, right? And so if I'm at work, I don't like the way that something was handled, and I start complaining and talking about how I would have done it, odds are I don't have the full picture, right? If it's just me and just people and it's very, tightly sealed, maybe that doesn't cause too many issues, but there is a chance where that causes issues for you, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're, it's good to spill tea. It can be bonding to spill that tea, but sometimes that tea can get you in trouble too. Before we jump in too much with the armchair quarterback, I do want to introduce the opposite, which would be imposter syndrome. Mike, how familiar are we with that one?
That I'm very familiar with. And for people who may not be as familiar with the imposter syndrome, it comes under a facade almost, right? You have a lot of confidence. You are very knowledgeable. You've done, whether it's plenty of research, you have great experience, you know your stuff, but you lack the confidence to apply it, to speak up, to be someone who says, I have the answer. So that is the baseline for imposter syndrome. And it can be experienced in many different ways, many different fields, across a variety of whatever it is for you, right? You apply it to your life and what it is maybe you're working towards, or what it is that you're doing. So those are the two dichotomies that we have in front of us today.
Yeah, 100%. And so, as Mike painted the picture of, we've got one that is confidence over competence. You've got way more confidence than competence. These words are so similar. And the other is when your competence outweighs your confidence. And so maybe you're not willing to act on the things that, let's be honest, you're right in. And so that hesitation kind of kind of limit some of that performance or success, if you will.
Right.
A lot of times when you take a new position or just graduated, something like that, you have the knowledge, you have the ability, but you're not sure that you can go in and do whatever it is that you're needing to do. Right?
Yeah. And let me also, this little piece in there to go along with imposter syndrome. And I think it was something that I experienced during my time in corporate sales. It can also come under the disguise of you feeling as if you're a diversity hire, or you feeling as if they only put me in this position because I'm a woman and they needed somebody to be in this role. Those are the two that immediately jump out at me. And you begin to doubt your value, right? You get caught up in the thought that, oh, my value is only because of X, Y, or Z, when that's not the case. You are qualified. You've been called to do this work. You can do this work at a very, very high level. So just understand that you probably are the cream of the crop. They chose you for a very specific reason. So I wanted to add that in there because I don't want people to get caught up under, well, yeah, I have the knowledge, I have the resources, I am that person. I don't have the confidence for it. It comes in many, many forms, for sure.
Yeah. It's a very valid point. I think the easiest trap with what we're talking about here is to think it's just an obscene amount of confidence. And
Yeah.
You either have it or you don't, right? But doubt is playing a major role as well. And so the opposite can be true. You could feel pretty competent and then you still doubt yourself in certain scenarios. And that would put you more into that imposter syndrome, right? Or, let's say with the armchair quarterback, you just don't trust the knowledge that you do have. And so that, competence, I guess, no, that'd still be imposter syndrome. Never mind. Ignore that. But yeah, let's just say that doubt and competence are fighting each other in the same way that confidence and competence are fighting each other, right? Yeah. So there's another pathway there with it. I am pulling some of this from a book. So if anybody's read the book Think Again by Adam Grant, it's a lot about rethinking, and this is where some of the conversation is coming from today. So Mike, I've got a little. What was it?
I need you to
yeah. I'll bring it to you. We're gonna watch.
Or that.
Something.
I don't know. That road, that 65 south, that 75, 71 connection. All right, it's a little long, but either way, just get it to me somehow.
I will. That'll be the mission. But I have an activity for you out of this book.
All right, let's run it.
You ready? And this is not just for Mike. So if you're listening along, I want you to just keep track on your fingers. I've got 5 questions. I want you to answer, compared to most people, how much do you think you know about these topics? More, less, or the same? You're about average.
Got you.
Okay. So the first topic is why English became the official language of the United States.
Less.
So your ratings. All right. So Mike said less.
That was easy. I don't think I've ever thought about that one time. I understand the history for the most part, like basic U.S. history that I'm taught in high school, but I've never thought why did English become? No, that is not a thought I've ever had. I could come up with an idea, but actual information, nah, not a chance. Less. Easy for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I might be able to make an argument for it, but
right. But that's about it.
So the second one is why women were burned at the stake in Salem. The witch trial.
I'm gonna go with less again, dog. I'm gonna go with less again. That is why they were burned. Don't know. Not the slightest clue. Again, one of those things that I've never thought about. Don't have much information on, so I'm gonna say that was less for me.
Yep. All right. Number 3. Is what job Walt Disney had before he drew Mickey Mouse.
Less.
Okay. He's humble.
For some reason, I feel like I read something or saw something about it and can't recall it. So I don't know what job he had before it. If I had to guess, is a cartoonist a word? Is that a...
Yeah. There's a fancier word for it, but I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah, something like that. So I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure. Entirely sure. So I'll say less on that topic.
All right. Number 4. On which space flight humans first laid eyes on the Great Wall of China?
Man, where did you get these questions from? All right, first of all, I feel like if I say less again, people are gonna be like, "Does this guy know anything?"
Knows nothing.
Hey, right? He doesn't know. That's what I feel like. So I don't. On what space flight they first saw the Great Wall of China? Nick, I don't know. Do you know that?
Do I know that?
do you more or less for you?
For me, all right, so first time I read it, right, because I've already read this, so I get more information out of it. Now, first time I read it, I was thinking like general population. I don't have that much faith in the general population. So if we're saying the average 50% mark, I could guess and make an argument for number one on why English was the official language. So I said more there.
All right.
I think I don't know enough about Salem, so I left that one alone. I said less there.
Okay.
What job Walt Disney had before Mickey Mouse? Way less, no clue. Which space flight humans first laid eyes on the Great Wall of China? Rocket ships have never been my thing. But I was trying to think about it. I was like, I could probably name a couple. There were some Apollo missions. I remember that. And so I could throw out a name. Maybe that's more than the average. I'll take average on that one.
Right, that's it. So, okay. So with that line, I forgot about the general population. So maybe I'll change number one to more. I mean, more average. But other than that, all of them are less. Everything else is less after that.
All right. And the last one, and this was the most controversial.
Hey, please make it good. I need a win.
Do you think you know more, less, or the same compared to the general population of what eating candy affects how kids behave?
More.
Okay. Yeah.
More. I'll rock with more on that one.
I'm excited now. What do you got?
Only because being an athlete for so long and having to monitor what I've put into my body, and this is based off of personal experience. Like I haven't done any research on this. Mm-hmm. Based off of what I've put in my body and what I haven't put in my body, I understand how some foods affect the brain differently than others. So general population, I'm gonna say I know more. I would say I know more on that one.
Sweet. All right. So this is where people can get mad if they didn't know what was coming. On any of the questions above, if you felt you knew anything at all, you need to think again. Whether you were less, more, or the same, if you thought you knew anything at all on those, we need to rethink this. America does not have an official language. The suspected witches were hung or hanged, not burned. Walt Disney didn't draw a Mickey Mouse. It was a guy named Oob Works, and I'm definitely pronouncing that wrong. You can't see the Great Wall of China from space. And there is, and this one is one people really want to argue, which proves the point, but the average effect of sugar on children's behavior is 0. That's usually what people pull on. I know it said eating candy, but there is no effect. They did a blind study where they would either give or not give the kids sugar. They've done this multiple times because there was pushback. And then they did not tell the parents. They said, watch the kid and you tell us whether you think they've had sugar or not today, whether we gave them candy. The parents were not able to guess at any significant rate whether the kids had candy or not. It's just a kid. Kids have energy. That winds up being the bottom line.
Huh.
Yeah. And so in those situations, if you thought that you knew anything, you just fell into what we would call that armchair quarterback syndrome.
Man.
Yeah. And I know there's some people out there that are like, I knew you couldn't see the Great Wall from space.
So what is that? All right. So I said more for English, right? I can take a guess. I think I said less for everything else, and I said more for the sugar one. Okay. Yeah. Dang, like in my heart, I want to argue so badly about the candy. We're like, nah, there's no way. But
dude,
okay, I'm gonna rock with it.
I'll be honest. I'll save some people the work. I don't have my sources with me, so that's not going to help me too much. But my entire office, I did this as an activity and tried to see what they would think if they thought it was more or less. Because I thought, if you can fool a bunch of other people who are into psych with a psych trick, that would be sick. I would get joy out of that. And the pushback I got on that one from the people with kids, through the roof. We had to Google it. We had to do research of our own to confirm that there is actually, the book is right, that there is no effect of sugar or candy on kids' behaviors. And it did come back that is correct. And they were like, I still don't buy it. I'm like, no, I've given my kid candy before.
Man.
But you have.
Okay.
But yeah. And so it comes up in everyday knowledge all the time.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And there is a balance between these two, right? So there's a balance between imposter syndrome and armchair quarterback syndrome. There's also, when you're a novice, you're kind of excluded from this unless you're really confident or really, really doubting, right? Most novices are learning and picking things up as they go. And that is pushing them along. They're not really in either bin. And then after a certain level of skill is hit, a certain level of competence, that novice piece turns into what they say in the book is the confident humility zone. And that's
Okay.
where you kind of want to be, is floating between that and sometimes the imposter syndrome, because you have some doubt. You're not arrogant, but you do want to check yourself, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're checking yourself, the way that they put it was, if you don't think there's a floor above you, how are you going to get to it? If you already think you know everything, how are you going to learn anything else? And so that's that line where some level of imposter syndrome or doubt in yourself pushes you to grow, which I thought was cool. Now, when we take that, the reason I wanted to bring this up was to tie that in. When we make claims, when we and our friends make claims, especially talk about sports, I mean, take any guy and ask him who you should draft for fantasy football next year when it comes around, right? They know what they're doing, right? They're 100% sure. And then ask them again in 5 weeks.
Right.
Completely different, right?
They're supposed to be in that back room. They're supposed to be in that back room helping to make that call.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We're calling this guy. Yep.
And it's those claims that usually start the debates.
Right.
It's not that serious for most people, I think you could say, with fantasy football, but maybe your actual team, maybe, a more everyday debate on how you should handle something at work. Maybe the stakes get a little bit higher. We have these same things, right? I'm throwing out claims because I think I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
If it turns out I don't, and I'm being an armchair quarterback in the office, one, I could be setting everybody up for failure, but two, I'm probably setting up for some debates here. We're setting up for some arguments, and those could be productive, or they could be terribly unproductive and even deteriorate some things. Less about what those do, more about what determines which route it goes. The next thing he gets into this book with is relational conflict and task conflict. Now, this is another one, Mike, I think we maybe have briefly hit on.
Right, yeah.
I say relational conflict, task conflict. Any ideas there? What are you thinking?
Are you asking for differences, or what are we looking for here?
Yeah, what is it?
So relational conflict, and what was the second one again?
Task conflict.
And task conflict. Mm-hmm. So let me start by saying, I think two things can exist at the same time. Mm-hmm. Right? I say that because what if there is task at hand that needs to be accomplished, and you're doing it with someone that you have relation to? Let's say you and I were working on something, right? And we're working on building out our calendar for Men to Mind.
Yeah.
You want to take one approach, I want to take a completely different approach. And we both think that our approach is right, and we want to make that very evident without considering how the other person receives the information we're bringing to them, right? So we got relation conflict and task conflict. The relation conflict is, understand Nick is my guy, understand Mike is my guy, where we're tight. I don't want to damage this. But on the inverse, I'm not concerned about how Nick is going to feel or Mike is going to feel. I just need to get this point across. So you have your relational conflict there. Task conflict is, I'm right. This is the task at hand. It needs to be accomplished this way. This is the only way that it can be. So that is where in my mind, that's how those two things coexist or exist independently. Give me some more information to steer this. I'm not exactly sure, but that's what I think about it.
That's what we're here about. We're here to explore, to dive in together.
Right.
Expert on these things. I'm pulling it from the book, reflecting on it, having a conversation. And so how I would interpret it and how I've seen it put in this book, task conflict is people against the problem.
Okay.
And so what you are arguing against is not the person necessarily, right? It's not, Mike, you are a terrible human being and I hate you. And that is why your points are invalid, right? I'm not taking personal digs. We're not getting to that level. I'm not trying to bring Mike's personality or anything into it, right? The person and the task are separate.
Yeah.
And so the sides of the task are separate from me and Mike, right? And that way we can say, okay, let's find the best solution to this problem. We are at the common ground that we want to solve this problem and come to a resolution. So let's talk about how to get there and less about you and me, right?
Right.
Relational conflict would be people against people. And this is where, I am, maybe it's not directly taking attacks at Mike.
Yeah.
But every point you make, I tie to you. And that in turn makes me tie myself to every point that I'm making, get defensive, dig my heels in. And then we stop seeing that progress. Right?
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Does task conflict lead to relational conflict, or does relational conflict lead to task conflict?
That's a great question. I don't have that one in the book, but I'll take a stab at it.
Fair.
I think it depends over time, your relationship with that person. I think it could go either way, in short.
Yeah.
So I could see tasks piling up, and maybe you don't like the method people take getting there, right? So what starts as a task conflict where you're trying to solve problems turns into, I really hate how long and drawn out you make all of these things. Like, it no longer feels like we're solving the problem. It just feels like you're annoying. Like, we could skip a couple of steps, right? And so two things are going on there. One, I'm avoiding talking about that methodology, and I'm just building resentment, right? And so in a way, we're just avoidant in that. The other thing is I'm starting to care less about that task and solving the problem and more about the relationships and the people in it, right? The people become a growing piece there. But I also think, let's take partnership, for example. If you have somebody that you really, really care about, you might have grown up and people versus people is what it is. Like, you're arguing with somebody. And so to find a solution, you need to argue and hash it out, right? You could get really good at that and really start to minimize how many feelings are hurt over time. So I think it could go either way. How it does that, I don't really know beyond that. But
that's totally fair. I can rock with that.
But the reason that I wanted to bring this up is, so he has a couple of graphs here, right? And so in low performing groups, so no longer just two individuals, but let's take a workplace, let's take an office, let's take a friend group even that is trying to solve something, get something done. The amount of conflict staying roughly the same over time. Low performing groups have very similar amounts of both task conflict and relationship conflict, relational conflict. But high performing groups, over time, the task conflict outweighs the relational. And so that relationship between the two, it's not to say that neither is just non-existent. They both are there. But to the degree that the task conflict is more of what you have, you find more success. The interesting piece about this is that it's not a measurement of arguments. It's a measure of what type of arguments you're having, what type of debates you're having.
Explain that.
So if I have a room of people and nobody takes anything personally and they go at each other's throats with ideas, they're going at the ideas, not each other, but they're constantly critiquing each other and pushing each other to rethink their positions and prove that things work.
All right.
So Mike, that might be a good idea on how to do the calendar.
Right.
Why is that better? How does that work? And how does it navigate XYZ that I think mine does well? And let's get some understanding.
I was going to say, it sounds like it just backs it up with more. It makes you apply a reason. You can't make a claim of this is better, but I don't have an explanation for you. Let's just adopt this as our blanket for how we operate. And I like that a lot.
Yeah. And it gets into something that we've touched on in the past of like a healthy conflict, right?
Yeah.
And so to the degree that you have more of this task conflict versus the relational conflict, or relationship conflict, which one technically relationship. There we go. I'm finally answer buzz that in. To the degree that you have more task conflict, you see higher performance as a group. You see more innovation. You see more ideas. You see better success, even on like a sales floor. The degree that you can create task conflict with the person you're selling to, instead of you're this type of person buys these types of things and pitching it that way.
Right.
You see more consistent success.
Yeah.
But now I'm going to throw another wrench in it. The real interesting part to me came on the next page. And this is a quote from the book. The absence of conflict is not harmony. It's apathy.
The absence of conflict is not harmony. It's apathy. Okay.
Now, this is super interesting when you apply it to parenting in particular, because growing up, if your parents were able to disagree in a healthy, productive manner in front of you, they have now modeled that for you. Or if your parents were unable to do that and kept arguments behind closed doors, you, and I'm this one hit me personally. I grew up with the idea that the absence of conflict is a good thing. And that's what a healthy relationship looks like.
Right.
And that was a game changer for me. That was, wow, okay. So I have it all backwards because I avoid argument quite a bit. I don't like diving into conflicts head on. I like pushing people's buttons and seeing how they respond to things, but that's a little bit more passive of an approach.
Hey, that's called being an instigator, right? That's what that is, Nick.
I mean, hey, somebody's got to stir the pot. No one has to stir the pot. But yeah, and then you get into the ideas of like people pleasing, right? To the degree that you are going and trying to make everybody happy, or
right.
To the degree that you're actively trying to not make everybody happy. What degree of task conflict and what degree of relationship conflict are we employing?
Yeah.
And then what level are we performing at because of it? And so I thought that was really interesting. Definitely some good reflection there on kind of what an ideal partnership, and that not just being personal, but work partnership, what an ideal relationship with any individual looks like.
Yeah.
And he comes to the conclusion that the ideal members of a challenge network, if you will, or people that are working together and helping each other grow, is that they're disagreeable and they question things, and they question things frequently. To the degree that you question and rethink your positions on things, you see more success because of it. And that's something that we don't do a lot. That's kind of the central piece of this book, I would say, at least to where I'm at in it now, is the more willing you are to rethink things that you don't normally rethink, better off you are.
Right.
Because a lot of the things that we have decided are our North Stars and help guide us through life, when was the last time you sat down and thought about that?
Yeah.
And it might still be the best way to go about it. But if you haven't rethought it and critically rethought it, what if it's not?
Yeah.
And
I think that's a really powerful. I just had like a light bulb moment. I won't call it like a significant light bulb moment, but that's one of the main reasons we started this, was to mend the mind, actually, like to reframe the way you think about, I won't say problems, and I'll say problems, but problems can be good and bad, right? Mm-hmm. Problems challenge you to grow. Problems challenge the way you think. They challenge the people around you. They challenge you to bring in people who know more than you know. So I think that's a really, really phenomenal way to reshape what we believe our reality is. So this is a story I'm telling myself, but this is the truth of it right here. Now, I think that's super dope. This book in its entirety, or at least to where you are now, and how it is actively challenging you in this instance, but in turn, you are hopefully challenging others to continue to reframe the way they think and approach conflicts, problems, relationships, tasks, all those things. So that's dope. I like this.
No, I completely agree. And I've got like one more point from the book. And then I think we just try to apply it. Like I said earlier, I think we said it earlier, aiming for these to be a little bit shorter, a little bit more palatable, and increase the quality, but not necessarily the minutes.
Right.
And so he goes to talk about what successful debaters and negotiators do. Well, this could be a sales negotiation, and this could be an actual debate, like a debate club that you would have in school. This could be an everyday talk between you and someone else. But skilled negotiators do two things more than average negotiators. And that is they lean on a common ground almost 4 times more often. And then they also ask more than 2 times the questions, of an average negotiator. So what does the average negotiator do more? They list out the reasons for the point that they hold and the argument that they're trying to make. And so if I am arguing why, I keep using the Bengals as an example, first thing I see, but if I want to make an argument on why the Bengals are the best, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a lot of statistics, and I am going to list out 20 different reasons the Bengals are the best, right? And the problem with that, is now you've got 20 different reasons that you can slowly pick the worst one, the weakest one, and derail my argument because, well, if that's not true, none of it's probably true. And then that also leads to the other thing. The average negotiators do more than skilled negotiators, is defend attack spirals. That one's interesting because this is where we usually start slinging mud and it turns into that relational conflict in my head, at least. The quote that they had from somebody who was running for office and got much further. Wound up being a runner-up from someone who was barely on the ballot. I think it was in Iceland, or it was some country that was not the U.S. But
Yeah.
they said, might even be the debater. Who knows? Not important. Arguments are often more combative and adversarial than they need to be. And so you should be willing to listen to what someone else is saying and give them a lot of credit for it. That'll actually make you look like a reasonable person.
Yep. I can't tell you how many times, and I'm gonna tie in the sales and negotiator piece of what you just said. Working in sales for 3 years, as I started to perfect my sales pitch, the products I was selling, and to close more business, the faster without a doubt, the faster that I found common ground with somebody, found a connection, or they saw me as a normal person, they didn't see me as a salesman or a sales rep.
Yep.
The sales process went much smoother. They trusted me a lot quicker, and I closed that sale and earned their business nearly twice as fast as I would any other time. In the beginning, it was, hey, you need X, Y, and Z because blank. After that, it would take me 30 minutes, 40 minutes of us going back and forth about, oh, maybe I don't need this, or what are your alternatives? What do you have here? No, what I started doing was I go in, I want to break these barriers down a little bit. I'm going to learn about you, find what common ground we have, and then we'll tackle this together, because I wanted to, it felt like it was speed dating. That's what it felt like to me. Like, it felt like we were speed dating, and I had to very, very quickly get you to trust me, and for you to understand that I'm not here to upsell you on things. I'm not the opponent. Like, I want to work with you to help you solve the problems. And I think that's exactly what this is saying. I think that's exactly what it's saying.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, this idea that we are on the same team.
Exactly.
We have a problem to solve.
Yeah.
In line with the ideas of a more task conflict, right?
Right.
Yeah, and one of the other... Yeah, go ahead.
Got it.
Well, different book, but similar point. Sales is a very interesting one. And this is sales in a literal sense, as this is your profession, but this is also just a sales pitch for something you want to do. So if I'm going to Mike and I'm trying to get him convinced on doing something, it's a net positive, right? I sell the goods or the argument to Mike, who will accept or buy the argument if it is good for him. A successful sale works for both parties. It's not one loses and one wins.
Right.
And that's something that in certain scenarios, I know not all, but in certain scenarios, we really struggle understanding that everybody can win.
Yeah.
Around the same time.
I wanted to tie it to relationships in particular. Since I started dating in my adult life, have always worked to create an environment where both parties felt heard and there was an understanding that we are on the same team. Yep. The problem isn't between us, right? The problem is the task that we're trying to tackle, and sometimes it can look like we're attacking each other. Like, think about if you have a square or a circle, whatever shape you want to use in the middle. If I'm approaching it from this direction and you're coming at it from this direction, now it looks like we're fighting each other just because we're not taking the same approach. And that's not necessarily the case. So again, goes back to the point of the resolution, the closings are meant to be mutually beneficial and advantageous for both parties. Like, there shouldn't be, oh, I'm the winner and they're the loser with this. No, like, we can both win and get the outcome that we want from this.
Yeah, 100%. And that goes back to the absence of conflict, not being harmony, but actually being apathy, right? If you don't have any problems, if there are no problems that you're seeking and arguing or debating for, not in a negative connotation, just a dispute, if you will, two different opinions, you're either in a zone of complacency, you're in an extreme zone of avoidance, or you are genuinely blind, which is all okay things. But if you're trying to grow and develop, and that's a key, if you are trying to grow and develop, whatever that relationship is, whatever that group is, that's not a great way to go about it. If you don't care about that group, If you don't care about the success and growth in that situation, then yeah, scrap what we're saying.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
the other interesting caveat with sales and that relationship piece is it takes more time. It might take less time long term, but with that specific individual, if I want to be everyone's best friend that I interact with, every client that I have's ultimate best friend, that's going to take a lot of time. The same way that if I wanted to really go, let's say I have a class or something like that I'm teaching, if I want to test every student's knowledge truthfully and thoroughly, it will take a long discussion with every single student. Whereas a test is a much more efficient way of doing that. The same way that it is for interviewing and using resumes and cover letters. Different wormhole, we'll save stuff like that for some other day. But that's generally more efficient than interviewing 1,000 people. And that's what it's there for. And does it have its flaws? Yes. But efficiency, not necessarily one of them.
For sure.
And so I did want to piggyback on your point of relationship as well real quick, which is just being able to say, as a person, I see your point, makes it really easy to build that relationship that you've been talking about. And if you can build from that point and then ask questions and understand where we're going from, right? It's also going to make them more likely to see where you're coming from.
Right.
Odds are, whatever your dispute is over, you have more in common than you have apart. And so start there. The book talks about, especially in debates, what we like to do is take the weakest points first. Bengals are the best team. Here's 20 reasons why. One of them is I think that they've got the best, but I think that they've got the most grit in the locker room. Something that's not measurable, something that is my take, right? I might have 19 solid points. They call these the steel men of the argument, like the steel points. I don't go after those if I'm refuting it. I go after the one that was like, well, you just threw an opinion out there that's useless, right? And by using that, now we're defensive and we're arguing over different things. But if you take their key point that's their strongest point, work with them, acknowledge it, validate it, and then work from there to get to where you are, you might have more success.
That's fair.
So we have hit our 45 mark. We were aiming to wrap it up here. I know they go so quick. Maybe we do need to do like 3, 4 on. But I want to ask you, same thing as last season. What are some of the biggest takeaways here? What's something that you would like to apply for you this next week from what we just talked about?
So I don't know if it'll be necessarily this next week, but it was I had a thought about conflict. Run it back from it. It was something you said. It came from the book. So conflict. It was the example about being closed doors, and then the apathy piece right there. I don't want to mess up the actual definition or the excerpt that you read. Just run it back one time, because I think that was a powerful one for me, and something I can definitely apply over time in particular.
So the quote was, "The absence of conflict is not harmony, it's apathy."
Yeah. So the absence of conflict is not harmony, it's apathy. So for me, that one hit, because I actually saw what I would consider as a kid a lot of conflict between my parents growing up. Like I saw arguing, yelling, disagreeing over big and little things. And for a long time, I always thought that was the best way to resolve an issue, is that we have to be in this heated moment where we're going back and forth. Somebody has to come out as the winner. And eventually I learned that that's not the best, even remotely the best approach to take. So I'm grateful to have seen that and learned that way. I guess that's all I know. I don't know how I would have taken it if it came the other direction, where, like you said, it was behind closed doors, everything's great. And then to learn that, no, everything isn't great, right? So I visually, audibly see the conflict here. So for me, to answer your question, I think that continuing to pursue, and I'm not going to run away from it, but pursue conflicts from this healthy manner of, hey, like, we're just having a disagreement right now. It's totally fine. We're two completely different people. Mm-hmm. Let's find this common ground. Let's solve this task and take on this task conflict versus relational conflict, right? So for me, that's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, I love that. I think that was the quote that stuck with me as well. But for sake of difference, one of the examples that my coworker, I've seen her use a couple of times, is something I want to do a better job of this next week. And that is, and I think this can be backwards for you, but what do you see here? And imagine it's not a mirror of itself.
So what I see there, and it's not a mirror of itself, is a G.
Yeah.
Or a
Okay.
9.
Yeah. 100%. A G or a 9, right?
Right.
If I take this and I then go like this, right? I'm going to see a 6.
Right.
This is the same thing, right? And so doing a better job at understanding what it is that's causing us to see two different things and biting my tongue from saying, Mike, this is a 6. What are you talking about?
Right.
Because I think that'll be widely applicable.
That feels attacking, even though like the tone behind it, the connotation of what are you talking about. No, I see that.
And so my goal is to understand why you see a 9 instead of tell you it's a 6.
That's good. I like that.
Sweet. All right. Well, that's what we've got for you guys today. We appreciate everybody who has made it this far. Really fortunate and glad to have anybody making it this far, to be honest. And so if you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, get on the different social media platforms.
Yeah.
Come see us there. Main one is just Instagram. So yeah, come see us with that. We'll post
old clips. We would love some new clips. Yep. All that. Go check them all out.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Season 2, episode 1. It's a wrap. We out of here. We approach the task. Whoa, I think that was a bug that was. Stupid stink bugs, man. Anywho, get out of here. Because I guess we got to edit that one out. Or we can use it as a blooper, right? That was pretty funny. Anywho.